Hey guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel where I do art and talk about whatever I want. I am Hogblood, aka Laura, and I hope you all are doing okay. Today I want to talk about one experience with my piercings, and to be exact, I want to talk about my ROOK piercing and things I wish I'd known before getting one. I got mine done 2 years ago, so I think I can fairly judge what it's like to have one. So this video is perfect for everyone considering getting their ROOK pierced or wanting to share their opinion and experience with their already existing ROOK piercing or piercings. I hope you enjoy the little speed paint of my character Alma in the background, and yeah, enough talking. So starting off with the basic stuff that likely everyone, including your piercer, will tell you. A ROOK piercing is the piercing that is located on your anti-helix rim just above the tragus and is vertically pierced through that ridge. This is why it's called the ROOK, because it quote-unquote stands there like the chess piece. Jewelry-wise, the ROOK is quite versatile. Even though it's mostly shown with a curved barbell, you can also wear oval rings, normal rings, horseshoe bars, everything curved basically. You just should make sure that it fits your ROOK comfortably. Depending on your anatomy, you can fit 1 or even 3 ROOK piercings in that area, though 1 is most common because 2 already are quite tricky to maintain healthy. It is very important that this is an anatomy-based piercing. Not everyone can get one, and getting one despite having unfit anatomy will lead to severe scarring due to rejection. You have to check if your cartilage there is deep enough to hold it comfortably. If you don't have the anatomy for ROOK, that is no reason to have a breakdown and be sad. You can achieve the same look a ROOK piercing has by combining a flat with an inner conch piercing. Just talk to your piercer and find a solution for yourself, but obviously that alternative doesn't allow rings. Also, it's important that you only get that piercing after you turn 16 because your ear and the spot for the ROOK piercing is still developing, so getting it earlier can cause it to reject later on. The average healing time is between 3 months and a year. As always with cartilage piercings, it can range into eternity. But overall, it's said that the ROOK piercing can heal a lot faster than your average helix piercing, which is not difficult if you know what I mean, but you know, since the ROOK is in a protected ear area, it's generally easier to heal. The price point of a ROOK piercing is usually in the middle to higher sector, so you can estimate to pay between 45 to 80 euros or dollars or whatever. Usually with complex cartilage piercings, you get what you pay for, so I personally like to pay more because my body is worth that money for me. I myself paid 65 euros for my ROOK. Also, ROOK piercings, if done correctly and pierced in the right spot, also anatomy dependent of course, can have a similar effect that can appear with depth piercings. For some, it apparently also eases their migraines, but it's more common that it can ease physical anxiety symptoms like joint pains and such. I don't know, however, how high the rate is with people that experience that after getting one. I know that the Shen Men flat piercing is more known to ease mental health related struggles. For me personally, I did record a decrease in anxiety symptoms after getting my ROOK, but this could also be due to me just getting better in general. I got my ROOK done with 19 after the last COVID lockdown, and I can assume that the improvement was also related to that. But with any alternative therapy stuff, it either works for you or it doesn't. But what you all are interested in probably is the question pierced people hear the most. How much does it hurt? With ROOK piercings, it's one of both ends on the spectrum. A lot of people say that it's one of the most painful ear piercings that you can get, and even my piercer warned me that it's extremely painful and if I'm able to handle that or if I need something in case I pass out. And honestly, I personally didn't even feel it. My helix was definitely worse than getting my ROOK, and I was actually quite disappointed by that. Even my third lobe piercing was harder than my ROOK was. And yeah, apparently with ROOK piercings, it's either one extreme or the other. A lot of people tell that their ROOKs were horrific, and the other part says that it's one of the easiest piercings, and well, just as sad for me, it was the latter one. Though I need to admit that I also did a full-on self-care day before getting my ROOK, and like, I even took vacation days to physically and mentally prepare for that piercing by eating nutritious meals and sleeping well. So that may also be a reason that it went so easy for me. The healing process of ROOK piercing seems to have a similar thing going on. Either your healing process is like you haven't even gotten a new piercing, or it's a mess. I heard that many say that their ROOK piercings are worse than their helix piercings if it came to their attitude to minor inconveniences. Laid on it for a second and boom, it's irritated. For me, again, my ROOK was even easier than my earlobes. It even stopped hurting after like 2 days, bled once, it was irritated once, after I got an involuntary piercing change from an absolutely stoned piercer in Berlin, which is a story for another day, but my ROOK piercing even survived that while my helix literally exploded. After all, it only took me about 4 to 5 months of healing my piercing to the state where it could change to another jewelry, but I myself am still quite happy with the black curved barbell, so I don't really plan on changing it within the next months, but who knows? It's crazy how a ROOK actually affects your day-to-day life. I thought that the ROOK area isn't really affected by day-to-day activity, and while that is true if you compare it to a helix piercing again, oh fuck helix piercings, it's still affected a lot. Like, especially when dressing, oh my god. Please be careful in the first weeks, I beg you. Also, I never noticed how much subconsciously you scratch that little area on your ear. I constantly caught myself wanting to scratch there. Not because the piercing was like doing its healy itching thing, but simply because it was stimulating. Also, phone calls. You will notice your piercing when calling someone, because you will definitely hit it at least once. And if you don't hit it, you will hear that little clinky noise it does when hitting the piercing ball. Headphone usage depends on what headphones you use. I personally don't have any issues with in-ear headphones, but I've heard that some did, but generally it's good to go. Over-ear headphones are a no-go during the initial healing phase, however. But let me tell you, one thing I wish I had known before getting a ROOK is how intense they are to maintain. Luckily, my piercer mentioned beforehand something like, just so you're prepared, your ROOK needs a lot more care than a helix or your other piercings do. And I was thinking like, bro, it won't be that bad. Girlies, I was so wrong. Even though my ROOK is healed, I clean it twice a day because that little sucker needs it. And this isn't a matter of healing fluids building up during your healing time and after that it's done. It collects so much dirt over the day, it's crazy. But you know, it's also to be expected because your ROOK is in that spot of your ear where your body naturally transports all of the gunk your ear doesn't want inside of it. And you can just test it right now by taking your fingernail and scratching in that notch area. Your body collects so much earwax there that, as a result, builds up on your piercing. And if I don't clean my ROOK for a day, you can clearly tell. A ROOK piercing needs constant care even if it's healed. And I personally think this is the part where a lot of people give up on their ROOK. It is time intense even after it's healed, and you need to constantly look after it for it to not look disgusting or even for it to get infected. With that in mind, how is my overall opinion on the ROOK piercing? You can probably guess it already. I would do it again. It's my absolute favorite piercing, and the more I think about it, the more I love it. This is my current setup on my ROOK ear. And I just love so much how it complements my lobe piercings and the big stud. I just adore it so much. It's something more intricate inside of your ear, but it doesn't affect you as much as a daith would. Referring to in-ear headphones. I actually wish that I would have gotten it before getting my helix piercing. Helix piercings have just such a wrong reputation as an easy beginner piercing that I think the ROOK would be more appropriate for, similar to the conch but a bit more advanced. Since the ROOK is more protected than a helix, it's not as aggressive when being snagged or if you're a little inattentive. It takes a lot of care, but if we're honest, every piercing does that. Other locations are just a little more forgiving than the ROOK niche is. Overall, I would recommend getting a ROOK for everyone who has it in mind. Even though there are a lot of horror stories out there about ROOK piercing healing or overall the piercing process, you don't know if it works out for you if you don't get one. Piercings are, such as every body mod, a very personal thing because every body is so different. The only way to find out if a ROOK is a good fit for you is to essentially getting it done. And if it does bug you or causes you issues, just take it out. Piercings in the end are temporary. I noticed that more than anything when retiring my helix piercing 6 months ago. You literally cannot tell that I ever had one. If you want a ROOK, do your research, just like you're doing right now. Seek out a professional, reputable piercer and get it done. You already know you want it, so what's stopping you? With that, thank you so much for watching this little unusual piercing talk. I hope you liked it. It's not my usual video topic, so if you want more piercing related content, do not subscribe. But if you like the art in the background and overall are also an artsy person, feel free to follow along. Tell me your experience with your ROOK piercing if you have one, or tell me how much you hate helix piercings. I'm interested. Thank you so much again. Till next time, stay safe and stay hydrated.